Good afternoon. I would like to welcome the Executive Committee of Children's Hope Chest to this meeting where we will be exploring the idea of partnering with the country of Ethiopia to bring services from Hope Chest to different care points on the ground. Now, as you know, our standard protocol is to build a relationship with an individual or with an organization that's already on the ground and already local. After we've built a relationship with that person, then we assess whether or not we feel like working together would be mutually beneficial. Now, that is a protocol that we will not abolish. We will keep that in place. What I want to introduce today is analyzing 7 different variables of communication and looking at those variables and seeing whether or not we feel like they would help in allowing us to make a decision to move forward with partnering with the host country. As you know, communication is vital to our operation because our main office is thousands of miles away from Ethiopia. And although we work well on the ground, we must be able to communicate effectively. And so this afternoon, what we will do is we will look at 7 different variables, and then we'll talk about how we see those playing out within our host country. The first variable that we're going to talk about is context. What's the context in regards to how our host country and how the culture will view communication? After that, we will talk about information flow, followed by time and how that's viewed culturally. After time, we will talk a little bit about language and some of the barriers that we may encounter there. Then we will talk about power and equality and where Ethiopia falls on that scale and what they value. After power and equality, we will talk about collectivism versus individualism and how that works in Ethiopia. And then we will wrap up this discussion, this short meeting, with exploring the idea of spirituality and how it's viewed in the context of an Ethiopian culture. So let's start with context. Now, Ethiopia is rated as a high context country. Ethiopians value relationship and interpersonal communication as opposed to a low context country where it's more individual and working autonomously. Now, within a high context country, it's important for us to consider that relationship equals trust. And without trust, we will not be able to move forward. So it's essential for Hope Chest to understand that within a high context culture and communication style, like Ethiopia exhibits, that we are committed to that process and engaging in high context dialogue. We must value interpersonal relationships. We must be focused on building relationships with key members of the society or the community that we would like to work in order to progress. We can also expect indirect communication from Ethiopia. It doesn't necessarily mean that the words that are coming out of the mouth of the individuals that we are working with should be followed to the T. We need to be very cognizant of exploring body language and social context and exploring other cues in relations to the words that are being spoken. Again, it's a high context country. Now, when we look at information flow, this is also very important for us to understand because hierarchical structures are vital to the culture. Ethiopia came from emperors, and from emperors they moved into a form of government just 40 years ago where a high priority was placed on individual government structures and the people who run those structures. And that's transferred down through the culture from top to bottom, from government all the way to rural communities, where the boss is the one who needs to receive information first. The leader is the one who needs to be made aware of every situation, and the leader will decide how to pass that information on to his subordinates. It's also vital that we present every single detail that we can get our hands on. Details are important, and everything will be read. So our team needs to be as well read as the team that we are presenting to in Ethiopia, and we need to do that from the top down. We also need to consider that time is viewed entirely different in Ethiopia as opposed to the United States. They are a polychronic culture, so time can be all over the place. It is not linear at all. In fact, time is not valued in the same way that we value. What matters is, did the event happen? Not when it happened, but did it happen? And sometimes it's easy for Americans to get frustrated when we have details and we have plans that we want to get done, and then it's not executed in the time that we feel that it needs to be. Either we need to set really clear expectations from the beginning or assimilate into their structure of time, understanding that it's rather ambiguous. Now, Ethiopians speak Amharic. That's a totally different language than the United States. Obviously, it's not well known here, and so we need to be aware of that. But after Amharic, we also have a mother tongue. Usually English is the third language that an Ethiopian knows. And so one suggestion that I would have is that we present the information and then we ask our team on Ethiopia to regurgitate the information to find out if it was understood in the same way that we presented it. Now, when we are looking at power and equality, this goes back to the hierarchical structure. We are looking at a culture that's usually ran by individuals. So we have one boss, and he's in charge of many people, and they look to the boss for all the answers, for the solution to be saved. The boss is who is in charge and who makes the decisions. Within that culture, it's also very patriarchal. So we are looking at men having higher value when it comes to the opinions that they exhibit as opposed to women. Our organization is comprised of predominantly women, and so this is a factor that we need to consider. And also youth. The older you are, the more mature you are, the more respected you are. We also have a lot of young people, and so that would be a barrier that we would need to cross. This community and this culture is very collective. They are not individualistic at all. This ties in when we were talking about being a high context country. We are looking at the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. This is very literal. And so everything is done as a unit, as a team. What can we do together? How can we move this project forward together? What's the best for everyone, not just the individual? If something is yours, it is also mine. And if you have more of something and I have less, then you need to share that with me. We have a collective society that we're working with. And finally, spirituality is very important when it comes to Ethiopia. You have a Coptic church that's been around for over 1,000 years. You have Islam in the east. You have animism all over the country. And every decision that's made by groups is usually influenced by spirituality. We are a Christian organization. So again, this is something that we need to be aware of and that we need to be careful of when we are talking about different issues and how they relate to culture and spirituality in Ethiopia. Now, I know that was just a fly-by-night presentation on 7 different variables of communication, but I want to recap on some of the highlights. Number 1, there's major differences between the United States and Ethiopia. Number 2, many of the differences should remain and not be altered. We value equality, we value empowerment, and we do not want to appear to be imperialistic. So some of the differences are okay, and we just can accept that and move forward. And then finally, some of the major differences will affect our work, will affect our time, our language, and our power structure, and we need to be comfortable with that. So after assessing these 7 different variables, I would be really interested to hear some of your thoughts and receive some of your feedback in regards to how it relates with our partnership at Hope Chest and the potential of working in Ethiopia. Thanks.